What up, though? What up? What up? What up? Good morning. Welcome to the Mic Check Podcast, Sunday morning edition. This is T Word, the People's Champ, checking in just to give a little sports update, talk about what went down on Saturday afternoon with boxing, a little bit of football as well. So we're going to get this music together. I feel like it's a little loud. Let me see if I can fix that. All right, there we go. Sounds a lot better. So basically, Saturday we had a little bit of boxing going down overseas. Chris Eubank and Liam Smith, and this one was pretty good. The card turned out pretty good. So it was a pretty full card. It was broadcast on DAZN. Had a 1 o'clock Central Time start time, so they treated us to quite a few good fights. I'm gonna go through the card. I can't say that I necessarily locked in on every single fight, but I definitely paid attention to the more marquee fighters, the ones at the top, at the bottom of the card, I guess you could say. So let's go ahead and start there. And you had a couple of pretty decent fights that had, pretty. I guess they stuck to chalk. Nobody really did anything that wasn't expected until the last couple of fights. All right, so we did see Joseph Parker stop Jack Massey. No, I'm sorry, Joseph Parker. He won a UD over Jack Massey. Fraser Clark, he got a stoppage against Kevin Espindola. This was a heavyweight fight, and Fraser Clark did good. It looks like Espindola ended up getting an injury during the fight, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, if it was a shoulder, something in the arm, but he kept shaking his arm out after about the first or second round, and it just looked like he was uncomfortable. He was sitting crooked on his stool. He just didn't seem like he wanted to be there past the first round, and eventually he tapped out. I think it was an 8-round fight, and he tapped out around round 6. He didn't come out. Um, and they called it. So it was a good call on them. It looked like his corner was trying to talk him up, but he wasn't for it. It might have been round 4, and it was a 6-round fight. I have to think back for sure, but definitely didn't finish the fight. Again, Parker got a UD, unanimous decision, over Jack Massey, and it was just flat out just overwhelmed, just too much. He did have some lulls late in the fight that maybe it looked like he was running out of steam, which was a common theme over the course of the evening, but he still held on to win a 10-round decision. Next up, we saw we saw a welterweight title fight. This was for the IBF European, the British Commonwealth, the WBC International Silver Welterweight title, and this was Echo Esman and Chris Congo. And early on, Congo was on cruise control. He was doing all the right things. He was controlling distance. He really put his stamp on the fight to where you felt like Esman just had no path to victory. And then I'm not sure exactly if it was a stamina issue or if it's just inexperience and youth, but Congo kind of started to fight on the inside. He changed his strategy, and he started getting on the inside. He started grappling and tying up, and it kind of looked like maybe, okay, he's trying to conserve energy. This was a 12-round fight, and this activity began around round 5 or 6. So you kind of felt like, okay, maybe he's just trying to conserve his energy, hold on, not get hit with something stupid. But he actually was putting himself in harm's way by staying on the inside, letting the shorter fighter get better shots on him. And I mean, he would back up to the ropes. He was taking damage. And then around the 7th or 8th, he got back on this strategy, and it seemed like maybe he had recovered from whatever was going wrong, but that didn't last for long. He was right back to that same strategy, and he allowed Esman to come back and win the fight. I think I had it a draw at the time. I don't have a scorecard in front of me, but I think I had it a draw. But I wouldn't be mad if it went either way, because early in the fight, I think in the first 5, I had it 5-1 for Congo. but I wouldn't be mad if somebody saw the second half of the fight 5-1 for Esman. So Echo Esman wins the fight, retains both titles, and he went ahead and left the ring victorious. All right, next up, you had Richard Riakporhe and Krzysztof Glowacki. This one ended early, I believe, in the second round. It was a KO stoppage or TKO stoppage in favor of Riakporhe, and he was just too much for his opponent. Overwhelmed him, roughed him up, and just flat out beat him. I mean, there's no other way to slice that. It just was a one-sided fight from the beginning, from the opening bell. You can see, and this is cruiserweights. You can see one guy was in shape. He seemed very prepared. While Glowacki, he didn't have that typical light heavyweight cruiserweight build. He looked like he was on his way to heavyweight, or maybe he came down from heavyweight. He just didn't look in great shape, and it showed up in the fight where he just was ill prepared to handle the pressure that Riakporhe poured on. All right, next up we had the main event, the finale of the night. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. And Chris Eubank Jr. obviously came in a heavy favorite. He was doing everything necessary to win the fight. And then he just got caught slipping. He got caught with a good shot. Liam Smith capitalized on that, started to pour on the pressure, and it was over just like that. But Smith was doing so, I'm sorry, Eubank was doing so well early on. He was boxing well, controlling distance. He was really in control of the fight. I didn't necessarily see any particular mistake that he made, as much as he just got caught with a clean shot. Sometimes that happens in boxing. It's a dangerous sport. And the knot on his eye, it looks like he might have a broken orbital or cheekbone, because he had a significant knot on the right side of his face. And I'm thinking the shot that hit him dazed him, to the point where when that pain started to surge, that sensation of hurt kicked in. It didn't look like he knew where he was. He was kind of sort of out on his feet for the most part. And that was all she wrote. Smith moves in for the finish. And then it looks like Eubank didn't even know the fight was over. He was still trying to keep going, and it was a wrap. He kind of raced across the ring trying to get to Smith, and the ref had already called it. So dazed and confused is the best way I can describe it. And unfortunately, it was kind of a ugly loss for him. But at the end of the day, it was a valiant effort. It just didn't work out. That's going to be Eubank's third loss. He's now 32-3. That's going to be Liam Smith's 33rd win. Now he's 33-3 with one draw, 20 KOs. So he came in as a significant underdog and actually pulled it off. I think he was plus 325 or plus 380, something like that. So if you have some money on the Liam Smith KO, you want to get a nice little bag off that bet. So, and that's something that we're going to be incorporating more here. We're going to be incorporating bets, because I know a lot of people keep up with boxing, and there's pretty much fights every week. So you got an opportunity to pay, earn some money and pay for some of these pay-per-views, if you ask me. That's how I see it. Because it's getting expensive out here. So I think finding a way to make some money while you're entertained to go ahead and pay for those pay-per-views would be a nice little way to stay active in the sport and support the sport itself, right? Because that's what we're all about. We want to see the sport continue to have a place to be. We don't want these networks to shut down. We don't want these promoters to have to go elsewhere. We want them to continue to have a place to show, to put fights together and have entertainment for us to see. All right. So I'll go ahead and get the betting area of the podcast together so you all can take advantage of that and see if we can all win some money. Now, a lot of my stuff is going to come through Boxing Gym. Shout out to Boxing Gym's film study. I was on his live stream during the fights yesterday. Had a good time chopping it up with the guys. Blame Triggs, a young amateur fighter looking to go pro in the next couple of years. He was on there as well. Joey, aka Joey Gems. Those guys gave some really good conversation. And a gentleman by the name of Dirk, I'm not too familiar with, but I've heard him on there a few times. We all had some really good boxing conversations. And before I transition into football, I'll share some of that. If you don't get a chance to go back and listen to that live stream towards the end after the fights, we talked about complete fighters in the game, and specifically we talked about Terrence Crawford, we talked about Javante Tank Davis, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. Just I think where the conversation was a little offbeat is we all have different definitions of what's complete. And I did take a moment to give my own personal explanation of complete. And what I mean by complete is you can project whatever five skills or whatever five attributes a fighter should have, and then you can say that that fighter's good at all five. Not perfect, not elite, just good. But then you could also rate them in different levels. So you could say, let's say skill one is footwork, right? You could say, okay, this fighter has great footwork, or this fighter's footwork is, you could start at poor, you go up to mediocre, you could say good, and then you could say elite. So you've got four different levels of skill that a person could show at a particular thing. So let's say a fighter has 4 out of 5 attributes. I'm going to say that's a complete fighter. If you have 3 out of 5, I'm going to say you're not complete, but that doesn't mean you can't be an elite fighter, because the things you might be elite at 3 things and mediocre at 2, you're still going to be an elite fighter, even though you're not complete. And I think that it requires an explanation and some distinction on that, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea of what I'm trying to say, which is simple. You could be a great fighter and not be a complete fighter, because in my opinion, one of the most complete fighters was Floyd Mayweather. And as he moved up in the rankings, as his physical skills started to diminish, his ring IQ combined with the proper execution of a certain style made him impossible to beat, and he retired undefeated. And it's not to say that his competition wasn't good later in his life. Number one, he didn't exactly fight all of the dogs that were coming into the game when he was trying to retire. He fought competent competition, and he was able to use the skills that he had to offset whatever youth and skills that they had. So to me, you could say that he was a complete fighter pretty much throughout his career. I think he was more complete from the middle towards the end versus at the beginning. I think he just out athletic people, and he didn't necessarily show everything his skill set. And it, was causing damage on his body, because he was getting in battles of wars, and Pretty Boy Floyd would get in there and really like a fight's gonna break out for sure. When he realized that that was taking too much of a toll on his body, he switched it up. Um, I would say that you could consider Terrence Crawford a complete fighter, though I feel like he's starting to slip in some areas. He's still complete. I would say maybe 4 out of 5 categories are still intact, at a good to elite level. I think his defense is still elite. He's one of the least hit fighters. He averages being hit 8 times per round. So in 10 rounds, it's 80 punches. So you might get 100 shots on Terrence Crawford in an entire fight. So if you throw 500, you can throw 1,000, you're probably still only going to hit him, 6 to 8 times in a round. That's fairly impressive. Even volume punchers struggle trying to get shots in on him. I think that's an area that hasn't slipped, because I don't think his athleticism is why his defense is good. I think it's his understanding of punches and angles and his timing, something that you can keep based on experience. I think that those things are at a high level, and that's why those haven't slipped as far as Terrence Crawford is concerned. Now, I think his footwork has changed. I think he had elite footwork, and I think maybe it's kind of starting to slip to good. I don't know that he'll ever have mediocre footwork unless he just stays in the game too long. If he's still in the ring at 40, then maybe his footwork is going to slip, right? Now, Javante Davis was another name that came up, and I don't find Tank to be complete, because I think that sometimes, even though he has a really good slip counter game, I don't know that his defense is beyond good. I think it's okay at times. I think it's dependent on his opponent. And when I look at a skill that's heavily dependent on your opponent and you can't execute, then I'm gonna kind of grade that a little bit more harshly. So in his particular case, I think his defense um, can be graded that way. That's not to say um, that's not to say Tank isn't good. You know what I mean? Like Tank is really good. I wouldn't fashion him as complete. Um, Offensively, I think his work rate is also less than. Um, it the way that he uses his offense in an efficiency type of attack, it works for him, but he's also not fighting the best of the best to where he's going to have to learn to get off more offense. For example, I think it's a little bit of a step up when he's going to be fighting Devin Haney. I mean, not Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. I think his offensive work rate might need to increase. So, with that being said, that's an area I would hope that he's working on, and he's going to continue to mature and get better at being more offensive because it's going to offset some of the shortcomings. Like he's going to be shorter, he's going to have less reach. So he's got to find a way to get that offensive productivity up in order to offset what people are bringing to the table. Um, that said, I also expect that his punch placement is high level. Obviously, his power is way up there, and his power isn't just smack him; it's timing and precision. So I don't know if you really want to combine the power and the punch placement as one thing, because I also see how he varies his shots. Some things come fast, some things come slow. He's strategic. If you look at the way he KO'd Rolly Romero, that was a very strategic shot, and you saw him work on that in training and then execute it in the ring. Then you talk about his footwork. I think his footwork is really good. I haven't really seen him have a need to use it a lot. And when I think of footwork and people using a lot of different footwork tricks or tactics, I think of the way Frank Martin did against Michelle Rivera. I think of Jesse Bam Rodriguez, the way that he uses his footwork. Those guys, maybe I guess you could say their footwork is kind of OP. Like it's a lot. Um, it's a lot of movement. It's hop steps. It's hard pivots. It's very demonstrative. I think Tank is more subtle, not quite as subtle as somebody like Errol Spence, but more like Terrence Crawford. Like you see it happening, but you're not exactly you're not exactly paying attention to the fact that their feet are working. And I think that that's important for a fighter. You don't want your footwork to be taken away from what you're really doing with your hands and your body positioning and your defense. And I think Terrence Crawford and Javante Davis do that well. But I rate Terrence Crawford as a complete fighter. You know, I stand by my point that I think that with a little bit of tweaking in a couple areas like his productivity and some defensive adjustments, I would consider Tank to be truly complete. Does he have the ability to get there? I believe so. I think stepping up in competition is going to reveal just how complete of a fighter he is, and hopefully he is able to mature to that point before he starts to age out. Because I think he was talking about um, retiring like in the next few years. Like he wants to knock out his hit list and then get out the game and probably just do promotion and try to leave with all his faculties. And I could respect it, but hopefully I would like to see him reach optimal performance before he gets out the game. Um, I could say Bivol, Dimitri Bivol is a really complete fighter in my opinion, and I don't knock a fighter who isn't known for power just because they're not KOing everybody. If you're landing flush shots and you're able to get your offense off against the average opponent, I don't see an issue with that at all. I don't think that you have to floor every guy to be great at what you're doing. I mean, obviously, guys aren't KOing him, so that means he's doing enough to keep power punches off him. He's creating enough offense to make things happen. And I love his punch placement. I love the subtlety of his footwork. He's very fluid defensively. He parries shots, he rolls with shots. He's big enough to absorb shots because while he's not the biggest light heavyweight, he still uses his frame and his muscle mass to absorb shots and kind of take the punches and be able to get his offense off too. I tell you somebody who could be a complete fighter, but we just don't see it. I think the tools are there for Jamel Charlo. I think he could actually truly be a complete fighter, but it, the emotions of the fight get in the way. But if you look at him, um, probably the one area that he might not have the right what is it, footwork. I'm just gonna say that. I think footwork is the thing that kind of sort of will keep him from being complete because I don't think he uses his foot positioning to his advantage as much as he could. I like his punch placement. I like his defense. I like his counter game, and obviously his power's there. He's knocked out quite a few opponents. And since he's been with Derrick James, he's been able to set up his ability to strike better. But ultimately, I think he has the tools to be a complete fighter. I just think that those footwork issues keep me from putting him into that class. And that's not even a negative thing. Now, somebody else that's been considered complete, I'm going to say two guys because they're actually probably going to get to fight soon. I'm hearing May 30th in Japan. Noya Inoue, the monster, and Cool Boy Stephen Fulton. Um, I would say both these guys are fairly complete. Footwork is there, defense is there. One guy obviously has power. I think the other has better punch selection and placement. That's going to be Cool Boy Steph has the better placement to me. His slickness is obviously higher, but in a way is no slouch. And then you add power. And that's what makes this matchup so intriguing and why it's a 50-50 fight because they have a couple of things that offset what the other does really well. And I'm pretty excited to see this play out in the ring. I want to see these two guys do their thing and basically give the other something they're not used to seeing. I think the closest thing to like I guess that kind of power, or not really that kind of power, but just the type of offense is getting in the pocket with Brandon Figueroa. That's the best I think for Steph. Um, and then for in a way, I would say Donaire probably was the slickest, especially in the first fight. So they've seen a little bit of what the other does, but not enough for me to make a judgment based on that. Like it's not an exact match to the opponent that's coming up. So, but I would say they're pretty complete. Um, as far as potential, um, Bam Rodriguez seems to have all the tools to become a complete fighter, but I think he'll need to move up if his frame can handle it. I don't think he'll be able to like get it going and execute it until he gets up into a little bit heavier weight class where it's a little bit deeper. Because if I'm not mistaken, those lower weight classes have like between 300 and 500 total fighters in the world. So you're not going to always see the best of the best, and you'll get to the top of that weight class really quick. I would like to see him be able to move up if his frame can handle it. Don't blow up for no reason. But I think that's when we'll find out just how many tools he has in the bag. Right now, he's kind of facing guys that aren't pushing him to the limit. Sarung Fasai was a good example to where he saw some things early, but he made some really good adjustments, and then Bam was able to get it going. So you could see the potential in that fight. I think I was on a live stream watching that one, and we all were fairly impressed with the way he put combinations together. He was using the hot pivots, he was changing angles, and that's just a start. I think defensively is the one area I want to see him improve a little bit more, and then I'll be able to kind of grant him that complete fighter status. But I think you're not going to see that pop up until a little bit later in his career when he moves up into a little bit deeper divisions. Devin Haney is very complete, power, size. Same thing with Shakur. I would say if I had to compare those two, I think Shakur is already using so many tools much earlier. He's already using it. I think Devin isn't being challenged in a way that's forcing him to use it, but it's there. I just need to see it. Um, but yeah, as far as complete fighters go, I never want somebody to think that I'm hating on a fighter because I might say that they're not complete. I'm just using a more in-depth evaluation. It's not just a surface. If we just look at the surface of things, there's probably, several fighters that you could just say are complete. They've got all the tools. To me, it also boils down to not only can you do it, how often do you do it, and are you executing it at a fairly high level on a regular basis, not just a functional level. Somebody can be functional with math, but that doesn't mean they should be an accountant. Maybe you could balance the books for your business or for your home or both, but you can't go do accounting for a Fortune 500 company because you don't understand it fully, or the tools are there. You just don't know how to execute it on that level yet. And that's kind of how I approach the complete conversation in boxing. But there's some really good fighters out there that will fall into that category. Maybe I should I don't know, you guys tell me what you think. Should I do a top 10 complete fighters in boxing, or I kind of want to stick to the traditional weight classes? So maybe we'll do a top 8 with the original weight classes, and we'll do the most complete fighters, and we'll just kind of take those. All the juniors will go up into the upper. So like 140 will roll into 147, 154 roll up into 160. I just don't want this 17 people list unnecessarily, and there's a lot of just fighters that people aren't familiar with. And I think it'll help some of us get to see, some of the guys that's under featherweight. We'll get to see the bantamweight. We could really just dig into it. What's going to be rough, I think, is like 122 and 126. That's combining super bantamweight and featherweight together. So you got Anaway in there, you've got Fulton in there. Like, maybe I could do a top five for the 8 categories. I think that's the way we're going to do it. I'm going to give my co-host Q, and before our next live together, we're going to try to put a top five together. Maybe we can do some voting on our platforms. I'll see if I could get a vote off on Twitter, get some votes on YouTube, and maybe even Facebook. And I think that would be a really good conversation. Top five most complete fighters. And then, by this time next week, we'll be able to put a nice little list together and roll it out. And I'll be able to get some graphics and put them on the screen to illustrate our points. So I think that's going to wrap the boxing talk for now. Let's go ahead and get into this NFL football. So on Saturday, we had the Jacksonville Jaguars visit the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs won 27-20. And our guy Patrick Mahomes actually had to leave the game early. Excuse me, had to leave the game early on, and he was able to return, and the Chiefs were able to pull out the win, which I thought was good for them. He's on this quest for a second uh, Super Bowl championship, and he's got some pretty stiff competition in the AFC. So nobody can be counted out just yet. The Jags end their season at 10-8. I'm sorry, 10-9, counting the playoffs. It was a good run. Trevor Lawrence got his first postseason experience this year. I think it's going to go a long way for that team. I'm not sure exactly what the Jags will need to do to try to get back, because they kind of backed into the playoffs when the Titans floundered. The AFC South just isn't your toughest division. The Colts weren't good. They had to change coaches mid-season with Jeff Saturday coming in. Houston was terrible. They're still trying to recover from the Deshaun Watson debacle. Again, the Titans, all that talent, and it just didn't come together. So the Jags kind of backed in at 9-8 on the regular season. So I think that there's still some areas to improve, and they just need to find out what worked well this year. Have a good running game, Travis Etienne, and then you've got maybe some good receivers. I know Marvin Jones is good. You just have to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, and I think fortify the defense. The offense is there. If you could get the defense to create extra possessions by getting 3-and-outs and turnovers, you suddenly have an opportunity for your offense to get in the groove. I think that's something that was very key to offenses. Like the Green Bay Packers had a very and Aaron Rodgers better seasons. He was getting more possessions. Drew Brees, Tom Brady. When you're supported by a defense that gets a lot of 3-and-outs and more possessions, it tends to make your team better, because the offense is able to, they can have missteps. Maybe they have a 3-and-out, but they're getting the ball back so often, they're in a position to actually find the groove, get points on the board, and make good things happen. All right, so I think that might be what the Jags need to do. As for the Chiefs, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep working. We'll see what Patrick Mahomes does next week. His opponent is to be decided. They'll be playing today, something I'll get into in just a moment. All right, so the Giants went up to Philly to face the Eagles. And the Eagles were off last week. They got the first round bye as the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Giants were the 3rd team from the NFC East to get into the playoffs, and stole a win last week. But the Cinderella season comes to an end at 10-8-1. They lost 38-7 on a rival's field. And all I can say is, man, Philly looks good. They got a lot of players back that were injured. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, former Saint. And they did what they needed to do to win the football game, and they didn't leave any doubt. A lot of people think when you get that week off, you have a lot of rust, your guys are out of sync, but they actually used it to get healthy and do their best to be the best team, to prove why they won the number 1 seed. And they didn't backpedal to that record, 14-3. That's impressive. And now they're 15-3 kind of postseason. Next up, Bengals and Bills are going to be today at 2 p.m. Central Time. The Bengals are in Buffalo to face the Bills. If you remember a few weeks ago, Chicken Talk, what's up with you? Cowboys and Bengals win the day. Oh, wait a minute. You are a Who Dey fan, ain't you? Um, I am picking the Bills because they're at home. Um, and I like to see different teams in the Super Bowl. I think if you think about who's going to win today, who's going to beat the Chiefs, I feel like the Chiefs might have a little bit too much for the Bengals, but I think the Bills have the defense to offset that. So for the AFC Championship game, okay, you live in Cincinnati. All right, bet. Okay, yeah, I'm picking the Bills because they're at home. I wish, I wish we would have gotten to see more game a few weeks ago. I understand we had a little unfortunate situation. I'm not going to go into because I would have been able to get a better gauge on how they look 1-to-1, the offensive defensive matchups. But yeah, I got the Bills at home. I'm actually with you on the Cowboys though. I think the Cowboys are going to upset the Niners, and we're going to get an NFC East showdown in the NFC Championship game. I just think that Pollard, the receivers, I think Dak is in his bag this postseason. It's a lot being said about Dak, so I'm going to pick the Cowboys in that one. To be honest, I hate both these teams, but somebody has to win because we have to get an NFC Championship game. Now next week, well, I need to see who wins. But if I had to project the 49ers against the Eagles, I think the 49ers are a good matchup for the Eagles, but not so much for the Cowboys. And it's just like boxing, just like styles make fights. Certain matchups just favor certain teams on the grass. But I've got the Cowboys today. But then if they make it, I've got the Eagles beating them next week. So we'll have like Eagles, Bills in the Super Bowl or something like that. But I mean, these predictions could go all wrong in a heartbeat. You know how sports goes. Um, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about that. Um, as far as the playoffs go, I like the format that they added the extra team, but I would rather the 1 and 2 seed get a bye instead of just the 1 seed. I mean, it gives you a reason to be number one, but I think the 1 and 2, because sometimes it's really like a 1A, 1B. A lot of times you'll have two teams with the same record, and one just had a better record in the conference or within their division or something like that. I think the top two teams should still get that seed, and you make it just a 18 playoff on both sides. To me, that gives a better opportunity for a couple of teams that get hot at the end that maybe had a rocky start. They get hot at the end, and those four wild card teams get a chance to like duke it out a little bit, figure out some supremacy some kind of way. I just think the 18 format would just be better in my opinion. You just get a chance to really see what you have. You get a chance to see that team that started off, 1 and 4, and then they couldn't win their division, but they're right there. Hey, what's going on, Nath? Let's see. What do you think about? Let me see. I'm gonna throw these up on the screen. What do you think about Tyson Fury versus Usyk? Personally, I think it's an easy fight, easy night for Fury. Um, I don't think that's a. I don't think that's an easy fight. I think Usyk is gonna give him hell, and it's hard to beat the combination of Fury's physical stature and his skills, and you're not as big as him. And Usyk isn't like a power puncher, so I don't think he even has something that'll keep Fury off him. But I still don't think it's going to be an easy night. I think his ability to move and the fact that he can box could give Fury some trouble. So I don't know if it's an easy night. All right, back to football. Chicken Talk says a rookie QB ain't beating that Cowboys defense. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that he's necessarily played in a way that gives you those traditional rookie vibes, like pressure, and I'm talking about like blitzes, like collapse in the pocket. Those things haven't seemed to rattle him as much as the average because he's kind of playing with house money, right? He wasn't expected to be where he is, so he's kind of able to play more loose and relaxed because he understands that nobody's putting the weight of the game on him. They're putting it on their defense to do well and get them extra possessions, as well as their running game. And then, the way that they use their different tools on offense, I think it's just a really good offset to keep it from being quarterback centric. So I think it makes it a good game. But I can tend to agree with you that the defense is going to be the difference. I don't think the Niners are going to be able to put up the type of points it takes to beat the Cowboys, because I think Dak is just going to jump in his bag and he's just going to be the better player. That's kind of how I look at it. And I don't really do score predictions because I'm always wrong. Uh, I whatever I think is gonna happen, it used to be something different. So I don't know. But I think it'll be a close game early, and I can see the Cowboys pulling away, and it'll be because the defense is making San Francisco one dimensional. I think that that's an important thing for a team that has a really good run game. If you can make your opponent one dimensional, then you can start to rely on your run game and chew up the clock. And you get to offset the fact that you're on the road by doing that as well. You can take the crowd out by dragging it down, make it a little bit of a boring defensive game in a way. And then eventually your offense is going to break through when you can be as explosive as the Cowboys have been at times. Now, Chicken Talk, since you're here, what do you think is the key, since we differ on the Bengals and Bills game? What do you think is the key to a Bengals win? What do they need to do to make sure that they get the win on the road? And y'all let me know if this music too loud, because I'll just turn it off. Yesterday it was blasted. Let me see here. Now I was gonna go ahead and look at. I think the draft order is kind of set for like the top 12. Since we kind of went over the games, let me see if I can find the draft order, and then we'll probably wrap it up after that. NFL draft order 23. All right, so we already got the first 25 picks. Ah, gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I don't really watch football. I just root for my own team. You know what? Ain't nothing wrong with that, bro. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's what the team needs. They need that hometown support. I know people that Saints fans, but they don't know about the game. All right, so NFL draft order. We got the Bears with the number one pick. We got the Texans with the number two pick. Cardinals number three. Colts four. Seahawks five. I'm a little surprised by that because they was doing okay. Oh no, this is a pick they got from the Broncos. Never mind. Detroit gets the sixth pick. This came from the Rams. Then you got the Raiders with the seventh pick. Falcons with the eighth. Panthers with the ninth. And the Eagles get the 10th. Now, the Eagles pick actually comes from the Saints. We traded some assets to move up last year, so they have our number one pick, which sucks because we don't have a first rounder. So, all right, let me see. I'm originally from Detroit, so that's my first team, but Bengals one other team. Well, at least they're in different conferences. You know what I'm saying? Like you could get a Lions Bengals Super Bowl, in a fantasy football league or something. Yeah, at least they different. Okay, that explained that. What up though? I get it now. I get it now. But yeah, I think this top 10 of the draft, I don't really see this draft being the one that like truly redefines any of these teams. I think it's just gonna be um I think it's just gonna make them. Okay, I gotta put the D on it. What up, though? Gotcha. I think most of these teams are going to be pretty much the same way that they are now next year. The Eagles obviously benefit the most because they got a top 10 pick and they already have a good team. But some I'm gonna throw out there just before I close out. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one at 11 my time. I was talking earlier for those who might have missed it. I see we got a handful of viewers on. For those who might have missed it, I was talking about boxing, and I'm going to do um, a ranking of the most complete fighters at certain at certain weight classes. Like I'm going to use the traditional weight classes. So 154 is going to go up to 160, 140 is going to roll into 147, and then we're going to do a top 5 most complete of the 8 original weight classes. And then me and Q are going to roll that out. And we're going to give out some criteria for what's considered complete. Maybe say, hey, you've got to hit, what do you rate a fighter in 5 categories? And then do they match as good or elite in those categories? All right, let's see. Nate says, how do you think Canelo could beat Bivol if they were to rematch? Wow. He's got to up his offense for the most part. One thing I've noticed about Canelo, and this is one of them fighters I don't really enjoy talking too much about in a debate setting, because when you're debating somebody who's a Canelo fan, no matter how much logic you apply, they're going to disagree. But we all have to be honest with our favorite fighters and say, as they get older, their skills will change based on their physical ability and what their bodies can do. For Canelo, I think because he's been fighting so long, all those wars he's been in, he doesn't move the same. And because he doesn't move the same, he's changed his offense. I've watched a couple film studies on this, and there were some very specific things that make him easy to exploit. For example, the way that he uses his high guard, it's not active, it's stagnant, and he shifts his weight forward and he ends up off balance. And if you throw a punch as he shifts forward, you're able to get off a couple extra shots because he's trying to regain his footing. That being said, he's going to need to eliminate that or limit how much he uses it, or disguise the way he uses it, like set it up with something, like maybe throw a jab, step forward into the high guard. So now he's close ground, he's in position, and then he could get some offense off to the body, which will allow him to get inside on Bivol and maybe slow down that gas tank. Because if you remember in the first fight, Bivol looked fairly fresh and undamaged for most of the fight. I can only remember him taking off maybe like the 9th round, and that was it. So he's going to have to find a way to gas Bivol out. So when he's landing those power shots late in the fight, like he did in the original fight, I think then he could be more effective. He could test Bivol's chin at that point. So to me, that's one path. He's got to change the way that if he wants to use that high guard to set up a particular offense, because he comes behind it with the overhand, he's going to have to lead in with maybe some type of jab or some type of combination, step forward into that guard, and then go from there. As far as like beating Bivol on the arms and all that, he can't do that this fight. I mean, obviously he's got 12 rounds of tape to review now. So he and Reynoso can come up with a better strategy and eliminate some of the things he did that made him a target. Even when he got Bivol on the ropes and he took a little damage, I think Canelo was a little tired as well. So he wasn't as effective as he'd been in fights with guys like Caleb Plant. You also have to account for the fact that he was moving up weight classes, and that might have affected his endurance and stamina. If they're going to do it at 168, I'd like him to have more stamina later in the fight. And I don't know how that's going to affect Bivol's punch resistance by going down that extra 7 pounds. Hey, good morning, Carmen Serene. Thank you for popping through. Right now, we're talking about how can Canelo beat Bivol? And I was just talking about some strategic changes that would allow him to get his offense off where Bivol was just shutting it down in the first fight. And it's just some footwork things. If you look at Oscar Valdez, he was using some of the same tactics, and personally, it just didn't look like it worked. When Shakur was able to just punch whenever they step forward and they get front foot heavy, if you can punch, you get them off guard, you can actually get your offense off and then escape before they even reset their feet. So if Canelo can avoid that, I think he's going to give Bivol something else to look at. Now, because I think Dimitri's such a complete fighter, we're going to get a good chance to see what his adjustments look like. And I think that that's super important. What happens when what worked in the first fight doesn't work? Now what do you do? What if you're not able to get Canelo off balance? That's going to play a big part in the outcome. I mean, that's something obvious, but that's really going to change the dynamics of the fight. All right, let's see. Carmen Serene says he got to bring a gat. He can't compete at 175. That's funny. Check it out. Bivol is just a bad style matchup. Canelo can't beat him. While I do agree that it's a bad style matchup, if it's at 168, I think one of the issues that Canelo had was that stamina. I think he could be more effective late in the fight, and it might look a little different. Plus, he gonna walk in the ring up 4 on the scorecard, so all he got to do is look better, and they'll give it to him. Now, actually beating him, where true boxing fans know what happened, to me, I think again he's got to change his offensive approach, and he got to get that work rate up. Hey, good morning, Brenda. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Canelo's gonna have to get that work rate up. Hey, and I got the link pinned. No camera required. If anybody just wanted to jump up and chop and give their own perspective, you're welcome to join. If not, it's cool. We could just talk about the comments too. I'm not pressing on that. But as far as that particular fight, that would be my opinion. I think there's a path to make it more competitive. I don't necessarily know that it's going to lead to a win, but I think we could see a better fight. What do you all think about Devin Haney against Lomachenko? I see some issues that Lomachenko brings that I just think that youth is going to actually really work in Devin's favor. And I don't always think younger fighters are going to do better. I just think that in that particular matchup, I favor Devin for a couple of different reasons, but I would love to get y'all input as well. So drop it down, or like I said, join the panel if you like. Yes, please support with the like button. That bad boy is free. And I always forget to say that because I just get on here and want to talk with y'all. So I appreciate you reminding me. Hit the like. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We drop a variety of content. I mean, if you've been on the stream for a while, we just got out football and got back to boxing. My co-host is a former collegiate basketball player, so we do talk about that. That is his niche. And I leave the deep down analysis on basketball to him. For me, I'm the football guy. But boxing, we both are very passionate about it. We both love it. So we'll sit down and talk strategy and talk shop all day. And as long as y'all listen, we're going to bring it. But as far as Haney and Lomachenko, to me, I think that the things that made Loma good when he first became a pro, his body just don't move the same anymore. So he's basically vulnerable to certain stuff that wouldn't affect him before. And then he also has some footwork issues that you could see where he's constantly resetting. And if you just throw a jab while he's on the move, he's going to reset every time. He don't walk through it. He's going to reset. If you'll watch the last fight with Jermaine Ortiz, you'll see Loma reset on a consistent basis until Ortiz ran out of gas late. But for the most part, he was able to just keep him from letting his hands go because he was constantly trying to get his footing. So to me, with the way Haney uses his jab, I think that's truly going to work to his advantage in a major way. And as long as the judges are being fair, they're going to see that Loma's not able to get his offense going. Now, Haney does have some concerns with the southpaw jab, but it's something that he can fix relatively quick. And it's a timing thing, just win the jab joust and then just time up his opponent's punches. So in my opinion, that's how it would work. Do you all have a different perspective on that? Would love to get what you think. Let's see. Anybody watch those fights yesterday? Any thoughts on those? It's open panel, so say what you want. Let's see, what are the upcoming fights? I got this app that I use. It's called Boxing Showtimes. And once everything's official, they get there. Oh, that's a good one. Next weekend. So let's talk about this. Better Beef and Yard. Let's see. Let me get to these comments first. Brenda says, think Bivol is going to be the new big dog star. Well, I don't know about that, but he's going to be a well-recognized boxer. But as far as star, like people paying through the pay-per-views and stuff like that, if that's the measurement, I don't know that he'll be able to achieve that because there's not enough people in and around his weight class that are going to bring in those competitive fan bases. Like with Canelo, you have a Hispanic fan base, and then if he fights African American or if this race or that race, you had that dynamic playing in. And then he also fought. He had contemporaries who allowed him to stay marquee. I don't know that Bivol has that. So I don't know that he could become the big dog star, but he could definitely become well respected in boxing, even more so than he is now. I mean, he's on a lot of people's pound for pound list. All right, Nat says, I saw Lomachenko spar a MMA fighter, TJ Dillashaw, and TJ seemed to be able to time it without struggle. Yeah, exactly. The way that he uses his footwork, it's a rhythm step. And because of that, anything in rhythm that doesn't vary, you can start to get the timing on it and you could gauge how a person is moving. And that's gonna be that. Um, didn't Charlo go at him? Yeah, I mean, Big Charlo, Benavidez. The thing about it, those guys aren't big enough stars to make it like a very contentious rivalry because those are guys who are going to end up like Benavidez should be at 175 at some point. That's not going to be the type of rivalry that people are going to get behind and pick sides when you think about Bivol and Benavidez. Charlo, he's just now looking to move up. So I don't know that he has enough stardom and time left because he stays hurt. How do you create a rivalry there? I think is an important point to consider. All right, so back to this Loma again with the footwork. If you're able to get your punches timed just right, you're gonna be able to find him, and all the hop pivots and all that cool stuff that looked really good when his legs were fresher. I don't know if it's just rust in that last fight, but I definitely feel like he wasn't showing what we saw previously. The chinks are in the armor. And I mean, even though he won, I just think it's because his opponent gassed. If Ortiz had a little bit better tank and he was able to win a couple of those rounds down the stretch, Loma would have took a L that night. And I mean, it was a good competitive fight. It was very entertaining. I just think that it showed some chinks that weren't just ring rust. It was this is where his skill set is now. A couple of years ago, it'd be different, but at this point, I think he's fallen into some habits that will get him counted really bad and put him in some bad situations. Now, since we have a few people here checking things out, I'm gonna bring it up again. I said it early in the broadcast, but if we had to talk about complete fighters, drop in the comments who is the most complete fighter in your opinion that's active right now. And by active, I just mean they take a fight. Not saying that they fighting 3 times a year. Just who's the most complete fighter in your position, or give me your top 3 most complete fighters. I was on a live stream yesterday, and we talked about um, Javante Davis. We talked about Terrence Crawford as being complete. Um, Stephen Fulton is a fairly complete fighter, and I think Noya Inoue also. Bivol is complete. I think Usyk has all the tools as well, and these are more boxer types. Like these aren't just like heavy puncher types that have like so many wrinkles to their game. I think that Tank hasn't really shown all the tools. Yo, I like what you're saying right there. I actually said he's not going to get credit, but I say that Mel is a complete fighter. My issue is because he knows how athletic he is, he doesn't use all his tools enough. And Mel, like he like to go off the reservation, like Derek James giving him like these on point tactics to use, and Mel do his own thing until the opponent gets his respect, and then he goes back and listen to Derek James. And I think he has the tools to be complete. I don't think he shows them enough. Brenda, who's your most complete fighters? Give me your 3. Now, if I had to just be nitpicky with the monster, I think sometimes he doesn't get the most from his footwork. Yeah, I can agree with that. I think he's seen everything, and even so. Let me ask you this then: So, is it fair to say that in both fights, Harrison gave him the most trouble because a pure boxer is so disciplined? they make it hard for Mel to get off script, and that's the reason that he had so many struggles with Harrison until he didn't. Like to me, I think that that's important to discover what it is that makes a fighter move a certain way or limits what they're able to do. And that's another thing. I think part of being complete is seeing people able to, regardless of opponent, get their skill set off. Joe Joyce, complete. I don't know about that. Crawford, Spence, Charlo. I'll give you two of them. I don't think Errol Spence is a complete fighter. I think he's fundamentally sound, and that's my favorite fighter. But I don't think he's complete because if you make him fight you from distance, he's going to struggle. Look at what Kell Brook did against him successfully. That's really all you need to do. The problem is at some point he's going to find you, and you have to be able to handle that body attack and that inside attack because the way he used framing, pinning, he uses his shoulders, the way he peels. Once he gets inside, that's where the damage comes. But if you could keep him at arm's length, you can have success. So to me, because of that flaw, I can't say that he's complete. Like I would say Tank is actually more complete than Arrow. Yes, Brenda, I'm honest about it. Contrary to what you might believe, but I agree with the other two on your list. Right, check it out. He did eventually find them. So let me see. If I gave three most complete, I could put. I'm gonna go with some young fighters and one older. I would say Usyk is complete. I would say Shakur is complete. Well, Stephen Fulton really ain't that young. Yeah, I mean, cutting the ring off, but that's boxing 101. Like when you start sparring and you getting in there with like movers, and he's an Olympian, former Olympian. So he's seen so much. That's the basics. Like you're not gonna make it to the Olympics if you don't know how to cut dudes off. In my opinion, I think it's a essential skill to get onto the national stage. You don't really need that skill to go pro, but I think to become an Olympian on that world stage where you're going through tournaments, I think that's an essential skill to have. Um, Jared Anderson is pretty good. What I think, yes, Anderson is really good. I like the way they're moving him. I want them to continue to step him up in a way that they're doing it because I think that he has the potential to be the next great. And I think that if he fights the right level of competition progressively, keeps stepping up, he's going to develop more in his tool bag. Like we saw in his last fight where he had to adjust to some stuff and he answered the victory bell. So I think it's all there. All the tools are there. He just got to keep moving the right way. Don't throw him in too fast because it can stunt the growth that's there. Plus, he's a young dude. I think he's what, 24, 23. All right, Shakur is fool's goal. I'm telling y'all. Really? So, do you think it's the competition? Because the way that he destructed Valdez and the way, well, I mean, Heron was older, but I think it's all there. The subtleties in his footwork, the way he uses his the way he uses his punch placement to set up other things. I like what I see. Outside of just competition, I guess that's it. Okay. So you're kind of saying what I'm saying too. I don't know how good none of these guys are until they're in the ring with some resistance. Okay. That's a fair assessment though. I mean, I can't disagree with your perspective on that because it's subjective to what criteria you set forth. And we all have different criteria at the end of the day. Brenda says definitely not Ennis. Nah, because you know what? Before January 7th, I heard Boots was complete. He got everything. He could do it all. It's nothing he can't do. Despite the fact that he got touched by lesser fighters, he was put in front of tailor-made opponents who wouldn't move. Let's see. You're definitely right about Tank. Yeah, Tank is complete, man. I just don't think he have to dig in his bags enough. Who the hell is Valdez? Dude that went life and death with Quig and got knocked down by Lopez, a featherweight. I thought that much like the offensive approach that got Canelo in trouble against Bivol, I think that was the same kind of thing. I just think the way that Shakur clean swept him like that, like I didn't feel like he was competitive at all. I think for a champion to go in there, Virgil would beat Boots. Ooh, I'm about to get to that one. Let me address the Valdez thing. I rated Valdez fairly high. Um, because I thought he got the job done, but when you put him in there with Shakur, the distance between the two guys kind of was an indicator to me of just how good Shakur is and how much better he can be. Okay, you didn't hear from me. I've been screaming from the mountaintop that Virgil over Boots. Virgil's better than Boots. Um, ooh, I want to see it because there's certain things that Virgil's gonna be there to get hit. Karma Serene says, I didn't come here to hear boot slander. Do you think Ryan is going to be an easy fight for Tank? No, I don't. But I think it's going to be a good fight as long as it lasts. And once Tank is able to get past the reach, it's a wrap for Ryan. I just don't think that chin is going to hold up. Chicken Talk says, Karma will tell you I've been a Boots denier for a while. I didn't know this. I can't recall really ever hearing you talk about Boots, and I've been in the spaces and stuff. Um, I don't even remember hearing you talk about Boots. I guess that's an indicator of what you think about him. Boots gonna be there to be hit too. He gets touched up by way lesser fighters. Boots is fancy, not technical. Oh yeah, I agree with that. I'm about to put that one on the screen. Let me get to Brenda real quick. 30 fights and he still needs work. Don't rush him. Well, I mean, that's the Cameron Duncan way, ain't it? Kind of bring him along slow. So let's talk about this point right here. Fancy but not technical. So for the longest, this is what they were saying about Tank. Tank is doing this and doing that, but he wasn't technically sound. I think we're starting to see it more as he's getting a little older and not trying to strictly rely on the power, even though he knows he's going to eventually find you. Um, as far as Boots versus Virgil, I think that fight's going to be in a phone booth for much longer than it needs to be. I'm not sure who comes out victorious in that particular instance. Like one of them is going to have to box the other a little bit and create some separation and set up some shots and trap the opponent in order to win. I think just kind of getting into a rock'em sock'em situation. I mean, it's just whoever eventually just gets that clean shot is going to be the victor. And I don't think that's a true indication of how good the matchup can be. Let me see. Yeah. So Karma, why you got Boots over Virgil? What is Boots gonna do to get Virgil up out of there? Or let's say it goes 12. I doubt that fight goes 12, but let's say it does. What's it gonna take to win? So I feel like in the fights I've seen of Virgil, he doesn't really use that enough. I don't know if it's because of the opponents in front of him or what it is. I want to see him against Stanionis because I think that'll kind of give me a little bit better indication of what Virgil is against a better fighter. If Ennis ain't ready yet, he should take a frisbee or cookie dusting. What's cookie dusting? uh, I don't think I don't know that any of the top five outside of two champions are really like necessarily ready. I just think that it's time. Like it's time to find out how ready they are. Virgil just fought a negative mover and he found him and stopped him. Boots still swinging, turning himself around. Yeah, I didn't like seeing that. I just thought that now their story, since the fight is over and some time has passed, their story started to change. First, they said like, "Oh, we don't watch tape. We just adjust during the fight." and now they're saying that uh Chuka John did different things in the fight than they saw on tape. So it's like that still doesn't explain the the overreaching, the reaching, the overextension, the spinning, and all of that stuff. So he has to get another fight, obviously, before they can fight anyway. I want to see if he's going to clean that stuff up, and if they're good, they should match Boots up with somebody else that's going to be mobile and get around the ring and use the same type of offense Karan did. In fact, I would like to see them getting there with Rashidi Ellis now. I'm more intrigued by that fight now than I was before. I thought Boots might wash him, but now I feel like it will be a good fight because they both do things that the other struggled with in their last fight, except Rashidi got robbed and Boots had a clean sweep. Lundy out of Broner fight. Yeah, I saw that. Who do y'all think they could put in there? Because that fight was supposed to be at 147, right? You can't put him in there with like a truly live opponent. So who do we put Broner in the ring with? I want to see AB fight. I'll pay the little $25 or $40 to see it. Fight Villa. He ain't mobile, but he's tough and can hit. Right, but so if you put Boots in there with Villa, it's not going to prepare him. It's not going to help increase his deficiencies. It's not going to help fix those deficiencies. He's not going to get that real work. I mean, he got to bring in some people to spar maybe, but that still don't get you ready. He's got to get in there under the lights with somebody like Chuka John again and just be working on it in training and then get under the lights and see if it works. Blair the Flair against Broner. Why? Just because the press conference, the lead up? Because I think Blair the Flair give Adrian some work, bro. I don't like AB in that fight. I like him in the lead up. I want to see him get a win because I want to see him fight a few more times, and he's got to win this next one. They got to put him in there with somebody beatable that don't throw a bunch of punches. I just don't know who that is. Maidana at any weight. Look, we trying to get AB in the ring, okay? He not about to do that no matter what. Nah, I want to see AB fight. I want to see him in a make me look good fight, So that would be my choice. Would be somebody that fits that. I need to look deep down in the rankings, like number 500 or something like that. Go pull that guy up and give him a couple $1,000s to come do some heavy sparring with AB under the lights. I think that's the route to go. So coming up this Saturday, and we'll probably do a actual fight breakdown, but since we're here having this convo, we'd love to get you guys input. Better Be It versus Yardy. I've seen a lot of people actually picking Yardy to win the fight. I personally think that Better Beef is just going to overwhelm him, and his offense is going to be too much. And I've seen some movement issues with Yardy. AB got broad shoulders. He don't never look slim to me, but he definitely looked like he's on track to be whatever weight, 147. He looked like he's on track. Like that video, you talking about the one where he's in the red shirt? He definitely looked like the work is starting to show up. So I'm confident whatever weight they put the fight at, 154, 147, 143, whatever they pick. I think he may be get there at this point, 149, whatever they pick. But as far as Better Beef and Yardy, he don't get his head off the center line. Like there's a couple of different things that just make it really hard for me to pick against Better Beef in this one. Said AB don't have the gut. Yeah, I mean, but that's lifestyle. If you go to camp and you got people around you that care about you being successful, things are gonna change. Number one, hey man, we can't drink. We got to bake the chicken. We got to portion control. We have to be doing that road work. And I don't think it's ever been an issue of him working hard. I think it's been an issue of him remaining disciplined between fights and just blowing up to excessive weights. And then trying to get down, and it's just making the camps harder than need be. Nobody's really talked to him about that piece of being close to weight. So when it's time to make weight, you don't have any struggles. What else we got? What else we got? Let me see. For the most part, that kind of covers it for me, y'all. I didn't intend to do, too much time anyway. I didn't have a whole lot to cover. Just wanted to see who was up. Felt like talking a little sports with me. But I'm going to be getting a live stream schedule together. I'm trying to work out my personal training schedule to where I can do a consistent live stream. We're thinking about putting together something daily, like a daily 30-minute little show. So we'd love to get you all to tap in. Abner ain't fighting nobody. I think after that last fight, he said something like it was cool to get back in there, but he was good. He gonna do what he doing. But I think physically he could do it. Like he could fight at 140, but it would have to be like a 142 catch or something like that. Because AB ain't getting down lower than that, I don't think. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up on that, y'all. I appreciate everybody that tapped in. Chicken Talk, Brenda, Nath, Karma Serene. Thank you all for the support. Please hit the like button on your way out. Tell your friends to come and subscribe with me. I appreciate the support. Until the next time, we out. Peace.